Right to a channel of light fluid. And yes, it's time to check in at the Minotaur Hotel again. It's kind of a little mood whiplash for me. I've literally, as I'm recording this, just finished writing up some thoughts about the final build of Arches, which I've just read. If you're a patron of the Echo Project, yeah, it's out, and I will definitely be bringing that one to you as soon as I can when the public build comes out. It is definitely something, let me say that. I can't say any more because spoilers, but I'm looking forward to recording that one. But anyway, that's for the future. Today is Minotaur Hotel, and it's time to pick up with Wolf again. So let's see what he's been up to. However well life has managed to adapt to the most inhospitable of climates, there remain certain minimum conditions necessary for it to exist. And nowhere are those requirements more evident than in places where they are scarce, absent, or otherwise inaccessible. For daring to overreach, the wolf has earned only suffering. Gone are the days when he could slake his thirst at the first brook, find his bed beneath any tree, or satisfy his hunger with a simple hunt. Still, he retains his wits entirely about him, and no industry or injury deprive him of the robust constitution which has enabled his survival until this point. Trite as it may seem, life finds a way. When time has passed since his second diplomatic failure, the wolf has devoted himself solely to securing his means of subsistence. Whatever resources the bipedal bovine or his herd may have to offer in the future, he cannot rely on such a tenuous relationship in the immediate. A source of potable water is his highest priority, followed by food and shelter. Thankfully, his nose is sufficient to point him towards a source of liquid refreshment within a few minutes of his first encounter, what someone of a more human persuasion may recognise as a restroom. Imagine the joy in his heart to see fresh water, available for anyone's convenience, or the feeling of relief at plunging headfirst into a cool oasis after a day spent baking beneath the desert sun. At the hour of his arrival, the public restrooms are as deserted as the hotel's entrance. He takes the opportunity to gather himself while foot traffic remains scarce. As his mental faculties return, he remains vigilant for any change in his surroundings, but the hours tick by with nary a sound or scent. And so, he takes what rest he can. The dull ache in his ribs where the bullman punched him ebbs away with time, as does the dizzy weakness of his limbs once he has drunk his fill. Eventually, he chants his mark in the watering hole as his territory. Though it is hardly a defensible position, it shall remain a key resource until he has been able to get the lay of the land, and had a chance to accustom himself to the daily rhythm of his new abode. However, as he begins his work, a thought occurs. He notices no trace of man or beast who might contest his claim. Somehow he's the only thing that he can smell. It is no mean feat, especially for an animal who's used to tracking prey kilometres away by nothing more than an errant drop of phlegm from a runny nose, to smell nothing. Imagine, if you will, what it might be like to open your eyes and see a sterile void, with only the reflection of your own body to remind you that you aren't blind. Think of being trapped in a pure white room, smooth to deny your sense of touch, and soundproof to deny you hearing. Fed white rice, unseasoned, to deny you taste or smell. Kept alive, but only just, in an empty realm where loneliness kills the soul. Such is the wolf's experience in the fumbling desperation of disability, having had a fundamental part of himself rendered useless by unknown means. Still, his inhumanity shields him from realising the full extent of this madness. The pin and needle numbness of the senses glides off the wolf's mind like water from a duck's back. He hasn't enough of a psyche for psychological torture to effect. While he can scarce afford to be terrified of each unknown phenomenon, it nonetheless gives him pause to have one sense contradict another. He knows the hotel to be inhabited, whether by kine, men, fowl, or some combination thereof. He has seen them enter, smelled the sea breeze, sweat and sunshine beating off the bullman's skin. As he pops his head back into the hallway, his wet fur helps him detect a slight breeze, wholly unlike the arid air which buffeted him before. This wind seems to circulate of its own volition, without any heed for the way's architecture may impede airflow. There is no clue his animal mind can pass about its origin or nature. A brief retracement of his steps yields nothing either. Nobody answered the bullman's call for help. He dares not linger, but he can at least be sure that nothing will surprise him from behind. The wolf stalks on with all caution toward the nearest source of sound, unwilling to abandon himself to slumber until his needs are met. Sure enough, he recognises the crackle of a fire, though the lounge's landscape is just as alien to him as the lifeless desert outside. The tables and chairs are just another shape taken by the deformed trees which dot the cursed wasteland. He gives them as wide a berth as possible, like a man might a minefield, while approaching the hotel's hearth. Though his thick fur makes him scorn the heat it radiates, Hestia's blessing is not wholly lost on the wolf's animal brain. He understands on some instinctual level that a dancing firelight signifies a place of rest for weary wanderers. Those smokeless flames keep him from surrendering to the awe of calm that pervades his surroundings. A pang of hunger urges the wolf to continue foraging for food. His prior experience in the human village leads him to seek out anything that looks like it might contain scraps, plastic bags or metal bins. After a bit of searching, he nudges open a lidded pot and finds leftover soup, long since cooled and congealed into a chunky goo. Never has a single living creature before or since been so happy to discover an aspic. The world seems to regain a little colour as he gets a whiff of the meaty ooze. The sterile numbness recedes as his nose processes its savoury scent, predominantly chicken, accompanied by the earthy undertone of root vegetables. He senses no trace of a hunter's meddling around the pot. No poison in the food, nor metal jaws to lame his legs, nor flaxen snares to catch him by the paw. To spare his aged joints to struggle a prolonged period upright, he bites the rim of the pot and drags it to the floor. Nothing spills. The hardened collagen that leached from the bones when the stock was brewed holds all the ingredients locked in a prison of fleshy gelatin. Unsure how best to ingest the semi-solid mass, he gingerly licks it with his tongue before shoving his whole head into the pot to chew everything in reach. The leftover portion of soup is heavy with meat, to the wolf's delight. He makes quick work of it, allowing the booming echo of his own eating to deafen him to everything else for a few short minutes. Once he's disengaged from his dinner, the wolf leaves the lounge, with little bits of aspic stuck to his thick fur. He sets out with a simple objective, to find a place in the hotel where he will not be discovered until the next evening. It may have served his purposes well enough at the time. The wolf has no desire to return to his makeshift shelter in the desert, for fear that the full day in the sweltering heat will be the end of him. Likewise, he rules out any place where living beings are liable to congregate, such as the hotel's entrance or the watering hole. He breaks into a jog at a leisurely 20 kilometers per hour or so and dashes off. Before too long, however, the hotel's geography begins to truly confound his senses. As he continues down the marble corridors, they seem to stretch perceptibly beyond the range of his vision. The rocky ground refuses to hold tracks of any kind. The hotel's magic erases all scent from the air. A glance backward confirms his loss of bearings. He can see no path back to where he'd been, beyond simply turning around and running it away for a few kilometers. Everywhere he looks, space seems to repeat. Each door and tile and bit of moulding is just another iteration of itself, an eternal meandros of misdirection. He seeks a stairwell next, and heads up a dozen floors in hopes of finding any break in the perfect pattern. Like the fractal splitting of a tree's trunk into innumerable branches and twigs, every avenue of exploration only yields the same empty hallways and wooden doors as all those prior. The wolf comes to a stop long before his stamina gives out. His thought process shifts into a cost-benefit analysis of a sort. Conserving enough of his energy for the coming days is critical. He has no intention of spending more time seeking safe harbouring than is strictly necessary. Whatever trickery is interfering with his other senses, his ears work well enough. He listens at every corner and every door for movement, be it footsteps or breathing. Silence. Slinking to the ground, he watches for any changes until his mind grows as empty as the hallway's horizon. Consciousness departs soon after. The old wolf's sleep is dreamless, as devoid of life as the world which greets him once he opens his eyes. The early hours of the day have passed without incident, just as he had hoped. However, the nature of his new home carries an unforeseen drawback. He has lost all sense of time. Under normal circumstances, a simple look skyward would allow him to tell the hour. The artificial suns embedded in the cave roof do not move through the rocky sky with the passage of time. Likewise, though the lights were dimmer when he first entered, true darkness never seems to fall. No stars emerge from behind the veil of cloudy stone, nor are there any windows through which he could see outside if he so wished. Furthermore, the remoteness of the wolf's sleeping spot prevents him from using the behaviour of other animals to judge the duration of his rest. Humans, he has learned, function best during the day. Conversely, many other species such as deer and rabbits become more active in the twilight hours to avoid the attention of predators. In any case, his usual metrics of measuring time are rendered useless. All he can conclude is what his circadian rhythm tells him. He has rested for long enough and it is time to move on. Prudence bids him solve the most pressing issue first. If he is to live at any length within these walls, he must find more points of reference by which to navigate. He prepares himself the journey back to the hotel's entrance, and then sets off at a middling pace. With eyes peeled and ears perked up, the wolf does his utmost to anticipate any potential threats before they emerge. However, as he rounds a corner no more than a few minutes' walk from his starting location, he finds himself mere paces away from his objective. At the end of the hall, the wolf can make out the bullman's silhouette, and a human in conversation with him. Before either can notice his intrusion, he does an about-face and sprints back towards his hideout. The bovine biped's violent reactions made him wary of contact with it, just as the abrasion on his side reminds him of his encounter with the human hunters. Once he's retreated a safe distance away, he turns around to make certain he hasn't been followed. A perfunctory check behind him reveals only the same accursed hallway stretched into infinity. The wolf sallies forth several times more, only to spook as the hotel's magic redirects him towards his destination. He moves slow with each attempt, be certain his mind isn't playing tricks. The result is always the same, though his concentration never lapses. There is no pattern to when or where he's whisked away, no matter what direction he runs, what feints or convolutions in his steps. He inevitably finds the hotel's entrance as soon as his mind turns towards it. On his final approach, he moves through the hall as though traversing the surface of a frozen lake, expecting the ground to fall away beneath him with each step. He seeks the scene, waiting the exact moment when space warps and delivers him somewhere impossible. If he can comprehend the rules by which this phenomenon operates, then he can turn it to his advantage. As he grows less panicked and more inquisitive, his intention changes, and the hotel responds. He comes out on the other side of the lobby and promptly ducks into the nearest alcove he can find. The shaft which holds the spiral staircase is large enough size that he can hide in the hollow beneath without much effort. In addition, when he's pressed flush against the curvature of the wall, his silhouette becomes even harder to notice. The shadows beneath the stone structure allow him to make use of his natural camouflage, despite the relative illumination of his surroundings. Though it means giving it both the advantage of sight and his ability to move as he pleases the duration of the day, he has found a vantage point to stalk his quarry. Here he may learn how the denizens of this desert not only survive but thrive, and how he may best integrate himself among them. Unlike the town from which he escaped, the wolf can perceive nothing resembling an economy of being. Both need and necessity seem as alien within the hotel's walls as they are endemic to the world outside. You can tell from the irregularity of their movements these people are accustomed to a languid lifestyle. Not a single one possesses anything resembling a purpose or a sense of urgency. They shuffle through the adjoining passages at such irregular intervals there cannot be otherwise. Lacking any form of diversion by which to pass the time, the wolf makes a game of trying to gauge the settlement's demographic composition. For too long, he's learned to identify basic information from what he can hear, the sound of footsteps in varying strides, and the occasional voice. There's no imbalance between the sexes that he can notice, but the results are skewed another way. Children are few and far between, while the elderly are present in relative abundance. In addition, he can hear no other animals beyond the now familiar hoofbeats belonging to the bullman. Assuming he's successful in earning a place among them, his victory may be short-lived if this settlement lacks the means to sustain its population. The wolf is in his twilight years himself. He has no desire to start from scratch should the human with which he bonds pass on before him. Whatever means its people are whisked into the hotel's space, migration can only do so much. Replacing one elderly person with another won't solve the underlying issues. Either the wolf's desire for companionship or the community's need for productive, able-bodied adults. As the hours tick by and the lights dim, restlessness sets into his bones, as surely as the stiffness of age takes his joints on a prolonged period of stillness. Both spur him to his feet once the silence has taken root. In the dark his courage renews itself. Before he begins his nightly exploration, he shall make his rounds, to the watering hole to refresh himself, and the lounge to eat. He arrives at the same scene as his first night. The marble floor is pristine, bearing no trace of his scent marking in the slightest. He relieves himself without worry. Perhaps a greater quantity of urine will prove more difficult to erase than this may assert his presence to the world. After allowing himself a perfunctory frolic in the toilet, he shakes himself dry and lopes away. The lounge, too, is as he left it. After a day spent in the relative cool of the hotel's innards, he's better able to appreciate the warmth of the hearth. He allows himself to be comforted, however briefly, by the primal instincts of his kind, and the fruitful friendship facilitated by this most stalwart and indispensable of man's tools. The simple ease of driving off the night's lingering chill overcomes him as he stares deep into the flickering flames. Perhaps this is what the first wolves felt as they shared the blessing of man's fire. Before he can become too comfortable, he trundles over to the lounge's counter where lies his prize. Some cold cuts of meat and cheese have been left out for those who keep odd hours, and he eats from the smoked smorgasbord without restraint. A thought occurs to him as he consumes the charcuterie. Where does it all come from? In the wild, the order of the ecosystem is well established. Every creature is intimately familiar with its food, from the top to the bottom of the web of life. Among humans, too, there is an orderliness to these things. Whether on rural or industrial farms, any animal meant to be eaten must be able to eat in turn. Its current environs, cursed as they are, seem to laugh in the face of that natural order. Nobody works, yet everyone eats. There is nothing the old wolf can offer to earn his keep, because nobody needs to earn anything. And so he faces few options beyond throwing himself upon their mercy, or else continue to live as a lonely scavenger in their midst. The wolf opts to spend the night seeking answers, and wanders into the trackless desert in search of something that might affirm his expectations. Any familiar sign of life will do, even the shyest herb or blade of grass upon which a cow might graze. He walks the hotel's perimeter, hoping to use the cliff's elevation to get a better view of his surroundings. He sees the parking lot and the road. Then a sudden gust of wind splashes colour into the sterile void. Flowers sway in the breeze, bathing the wolf in the fragrance so gentle as to be almost insubstantial. Bunches of pure white blooms, six-petalled, beckoning with their languid wave. From the drooping bush and haggard tree beyond, stronger herbal odours waft towards him. Somewhere between oregano and eucalyptus from one, with the addition of pine and mint from the other. Two figures stand in the garden centre, a man with one hand outstretched and a faithful watchdog at his side. Each is so lifelike he dares not intrude further upon their sanctuary. The peace they exude, he knows, cannot be taken for granted. Nonetheless, the wolf is relieved enough to find a place where normal plants can grow. Whether or not they're out of season is beyond his ability to reckon. Such is the garden's tranquillity, they cannot help but sink to the ground and start to doze forth beneath the statue's watchful eyes, hoping their eternal companionship will prove an example to the men in the shelter behind them when it becomes time for him to reveal himself. The wolf wakens before dawn, just as the evening stars have begun to fade. However more hospitable the hotel might be than the wasteland outside, the desert shows a friendlier face at night than is seen within its walls. Here, beneath the dancing asphodel, you can scarcely imagine the burning hellscape it becomes during the heat of the day. The morning air is cool, though the stars are unfamiliar, their presence makes for a breathtaking vista. Perhaps here, he can allow himself to imagine a kinder world than the one to which he's become accustomed. He makes his way back inside while weighing his options. It would be safer to return to his previous hiding spot and continue his observations unnoticed. But on the other hand, or analogous slim as the case may be, it would doubtless be more valuable to find another vantage point from which he may watch events unfold. The shady space beneath the stairs has served him well, but he has learned about as much as he can with hearing alone. He knows when people are most active, how best to flee if the situation shifts. Nor would it be hard to lose potential pursuers in an infinite maze. Could he live out in the desert alone, should it come to that? Could he find an exit back into the tundra? He's sure to be discovered, given enough time, whether the result of his own carelessness or some unknown property of the hotel's architecture being used against him. For that matter, the longer he lingers without revealing himself, the likelier that someone will take issue with his presence. Food going missing is a dead giveaway, even if he covers his tracks in all other respects. Given all possible outcomes, he'd rather meet this land's denizens on his own terms. And should the consequences prove disastrous, better to rip the bandage off rather than allow fear to fester. That, of course, raises the question. What context would give him the best chance of proving he means no harm? Robbed of his nose, his tracking skills have been diminished by several orders of magnitude. His chance of singling out an individual, or even a small group of would-be wildlife ambassadors, is slim to none. Regardless, he must find someone willing to take him in. He's only just wedged himself beneath the staircase when he picks up a distant tremor. Though he struggles to hear it, he can feel the reverberations through the stone. Someone is approaching. By his guess, it has the weight of an adult man, though he never imagined a man so adept at moving with near feline grace. The footsteps pass over him, he catches a slight breeze, proof that the individual is deceptively broad of frame for one so apt at sneaking. Smell, too, seems to be at odds with his senses. There is a scent of the outdoors, a rugged odour of sweat and sun, powerful enough to be almost accurate to the wolf's sensitive snout. Though it is surely animal in origin, its ears cannot be fooled. It walks upright like a man, whatever it really is. Once it has passed, the wolf wriggles from his hiding place as discreetly as he can. The hour is not too late. This new creature bears immediate investigation. If another beast is wandering the hotel, there may yet be hope for him. He catches sight of the hybrid shortly after and stops short, trying to puzzle out its origin. A bull and a human may be an odd pair of progenitors, but it makes a degree of sense the bovine biped he saw be offspring of such a couple. An eagle and a cougar, however, are incompatible in ways which go far beyond mere disregard for social mores. It must have been a truly unfortunate accident in nature this catbird came to be at all, but it nonetheless looks to be thriving. Who better to befriend than the assured outcast? It navigates the metal forest without breaking stride. The wolf watches intently from behind the rocky plateau, which separates the two of them as the creature begins working its magic. While much of his view of the white obelisk through which it rummages is hidden behind the catbird's wings, he recognises the contents of its claws as food the moment it turns around. Whatever this white cuboid is, the hybrid has a command of its physiology that cannot be overlooked. It does not stir at the creature's touch, only let out the same low hum he heard on his first foray into the kitchen as the catbird plunders it of meat and eggs in abundance. Tittering birdsong fills the air, as does the scent of sustenance. The creature has begun vocalizing, humming softly to itself as its food cooks. Glad as the wolf was to find any repast here in days prior, a hot meal is a prospect that excites his instincts. The closest he can naturally come to warm food in the wild is a fresh kill, and his mind cannot help but make the association. Every drop of fat that becomes airborne settles right into the wolf's olfactory bulb, triggering a rush of dopamine. His mouth is full of drool in mere moments, and his tail bursts into an ecstatic wag. Whatever his initial misgivings about this thing or its species, anyone who appreciates meat to such a degree is a worthy friend indeed. Before his stomach can overtake him completely, the wolf barks to attract the hybrid's attention. Upon noticing him, the corners of its beak seem to curve upward into a smile. "Well, hey there, you're a big fella now, ain't you? Who's the good boy, who is?" The wolf's fur bristles as the creature draws closer, but he roots himself to the spot for fear of another social setback costing him his chance. The catbird grabs a piece of half-cooked bacon in one claw and squats, letting the wolf sniff it and approach in his own time. "Easy there, boy. I ain't gonna hurt you. Oh, Luke knows what you're after. Ain't made a dog yet that didn't love bacon." Like any animal presented with such an enticing treat, the wolf can hardly believe his good fortune. He waits for the inevitable catch, anticipating any sudden movement, such as the hybrid's hand shooting forward to take him unawares, much like the bullman before him. Just like any other stray, he's slow to trust. However, life tends to happen while we make other plans. The wolf's prospective weeks of carefully testing boundaries evaporate with a single act of goodwill. The time it takes the wolf to consider whether or not he should take the bacon, Luke has set it down and backed a few steps away. The wolf steps forward and snatches up the offering, smacking his chops in satisfaction as he bites into his savoury snack. After he has swallowed it, he licks the space of floor where it landed, till he's sure he's gotten every last bit of nutritious, toothsome grease. Then the wolf pads gingerly towards the still squatting catbird to offer his gratitude, such as it is. In a flash, his tongue darts out to bathe his benefactor's fingers in drool, and his nose nuzzles Luke's palm in kind. He is careful to resist the urge to nip at the scaly flesh of the eagle's talons, no matter how tasty the bacon fat which coats them may be. "See? Better poke in the eye with a sharp stick, ain't it, boy?" The creature rises to his feet. The wolf scampers back to a safe distance, only the siren song of crispy, thick-cut bacon to draw him inexorably back to Luke's side. This time he eats it straight from his benefactor's hand, letting out a yip of appreciation when he's through. Courage swells in the wolf's chest with each morsel of meat that lands in his stomach, though he still scampers back whenever Luke attempts to draw closer than an arm's length. However willing the hybrid might be to lavish his new pet with physical affection, the gesture remains foreign to the wild animal. Wolves at play are prone to all manner of roughhousing, growling and capering about as they please, none of which is appropriate within the cramped confines of the hotel's interior or the near total stranger. It is still too much too soon. Once it becomes clear he will not be receiving any further treats at the moment, the wolf chooses to stand a respectful distance away while his new acquaintance finishes preparing his own food. There's no need for the lupine to remain underfoot. Even as Luke whistles for his attention and beckons him towards a table, he thinks better of venturing near enough to touch. Still, the eagle's table man has aroused some manner of curiosity in his animal companion. Despite the fact his beak is better suited for tearing meat into bite-sized chunks, Luke couldn't care less, swallowing sausage links whole and shoveling mountains of hash browns, bacon, and eggs into his mouth with abandon. The hybrid takes no time at all to finish eating, at which he continues to make the occasional diplomatic overture towards his new friend. The wolf listens, in a manner, turning his head towards Luke when he's called, but recognising nothing beyond the fact that he's being talked to. He only responds when he hears footsteps approaching, turning towards the lounge's entrance and barking thrice at the arrival of a group of strange lizards, each about the size of a child 3 or 4 years old. Reptiles seldom smell of anything. It's more difficult for scents to cling to scales than to seep into a mammal's fur, for instance. However, the wolf catches a faint musty odour, like a rock upon which moss has just begun to grow, room that has been dusted in some time. "What is it, boy? Someone fall down a well?" By the time Luke has risen to his feet, the strangers have scurried away. The wolf resists the urge to chase them down, though he could drive them back towards the lounge to see what the catbird can make them with little effort. In allowing them to escape and thus alert more people to his presence, the wolf has chosen to make his stand. The wait, though brief, is agonizing, especially when he hears them return accompanied by a familiar set of hoofbeats. A short while later, the bullman makes his entrance, only to stiffen up at the sight of the wolf, much to the consternation of the three lizards cowering behind his enormous frame. Their eyes meet, but neither moves nor makes a sound until Luke's blithe spirit breaks through the awkwardness. Both turn towards him in equal confusion, though the wolf at least has the excuse and inability to comprehend human language. "Hey Angus, perfect timing. Found this stray dog. Look, they just wandered in, no collar and tag or nothing. Think I could get you to whip a leash or something for him?"
"Luke, that... I know not how best to say this, but that is not a dog. It is a wolf. A wild animal does not have need for a collar."
"Nonsense. He might be laying hard to get right now. But he's taken treats right out of my hand earlier. Give him a little time to warm up to you, and I guarantee he's friendly."
As much as I'd like to believe that, I would rather not take the chance. You have seen the monsters that lurk beyond the hotel's walls. The animals of the desert, and even the plants, if given the opportunity, they will do harm to all who come near them, especially me.
I ain't arguing with that, but has one of them ever waited this long to attack when someone got close enough?
No, I suppose not.
Besides, the hotel's managed supposed to keep him away, ain't it? They never come close to entering, much less beg for food, have they?
In that case, he could be like the foreman. Argos has seldom hurt me directly. He's much a monster of the labyrinth as any other, although more wily than most of his brethren.
Oh, please, anyone could tell he don't belong in a desert. His fur's too thick. Poor thing to overheat fast in the griddle in summer. Ain't the hotel's mission to give a home to those who need it? I'd say a stray like him qualifies.
It is, but think of the other guests for a moment. If he's not a monster per se, does not mean he's not a danger. There's no guarantee he'll not frighten or even harm one of the other guests. It's not like we can have him sign the check-in forms. The kobolds tell me he barked at them, and when I first saw him he jumped up to bite me on the mouth. What if he bites someone else?
Sure he wasn't just trying to lick your face or something? He's really a wolf and about as wild and dangerous as you say. How'd you get away? No offense, but you're too big a softy to fight off a real predator, I reckon.
I thought he was trying to hurt me, so I punched him.
That shows. Poor guy's just about as scared of you as you are of him. You know what? Give me a minute. I think I've got an idea to smooth things over between you two. With their feathered friend's withdrawal, the tense atmosphere reasserts itself in seconds. The ruffled ruminant's eyes fill with inquisitorial suspicion, doubtlessly born of countless years of ill fortune. He sees the old wolf for what he is, rather than what he could be. A predator, rather than a friend. The wolf cannot return the upright ungulate's suspicion on equal grounds. The fact remains he came to harm with the other's hand unprovoked. This is what he's come to expect from the bullman, whatever the catbird's affectionate affiliation with it. He tries his best to look non-threatening while he waits. Go on, here. The craven cowman winces as Luke forces a strip of uncooked bacon into his hand. Puzzlement appears on his face, only to be immediately supplanted by disbelief, and then acceptance. Both of them know there's no quicker way to verify the truth of the catbird's story than to put it to the test, even if it means that the bull must endure a moment's risk.
You expect me to feed him?
Yeah, he bites anyone. I'll take him out of the hotel myself. I'm sure I can find some nice place somewhere to turn him loose. The bovine biped shoos the little lizards away from his legs and sinks into a squat, holding the piece of pork as far from his body as possible. Fearful, he starts to turn his head from the wolf's direction, though expecting to lose his fingers. Meanwhile, the kobolds continue to cower behind his step-wide back. The wolf pads forward, no more eager to get within reach than his assailant is, but snatches the piece of bacon without delay. As he did before, he licks the residual grease from his new companion's fingers, while snuffling peaceably at the flesh of his palm. The bullman's gaze returns to this wayward soul. He lets out a deep exhale as he pulls his arm back towards his chest. The wolf sits still, a small victory in itself. He'll tolerate this creature's presence so long as there are no further incidents. See what I tell you, no harm, no foul.
All right, so I suppose he can stay. Once I've talked this over with Master Leo.
Ain't gonna regret it, I promise. Dogs are smart, you know. As long as we keep feeding him, I'm willing to bet we could even train him to work for us. Mommy and shoots down the old nerd basement. He's probably got a good nose for danger. He'll be our canary in the coal mine if you send him out to the valley with a team. Content that their protector has been left unharmed, the kobolds peek out from behind the bull's bulk, while he and Luke begin working out the logistics of caring for a wolf. Rise can speak a word of warning. They begin their advance, scrabbling over one another for the chance to interact with the hotel's new pet dog. Puppy! Me first, I want to pet him. No, me. Thankfully for the rambunctious little reptiles and get too far ahead of themselves, the catbird intercedes as the wolf backs off. Luke catches one kobold by the collar and clotheslines the others to his chest with his free arm. Oh, no you don't. You're all going to scare him off here rushing like that. You got to let him come to you. Yeah, let me get a piece of bacon. You all feed him into a chunk and see where it leads. Luke goes to get another bit of meat for the kobolds to feed their new pet, while the cow begins murmuring to himself, lost in thought. The wolf accepts each bite of food and licks the giggling lizards clean in turn. His eyes watch his prey turn packmate, appraising every move as the bullman paces back and forth.
Well, I'll put up signs to ensure no one takes issue with him being here. On second thought, it might be better to mention him directly to the guests.
There's a practice ease in its hoofbeats with the return to routine, as though his heartbeat were playing out in every step. And last he looks at the wolf, though his eyes still carry a tinge of suspicion. His trial of this newest arrival is over. His face has softened from the paralytic terror with which he once regarded the animal, even knowing the mien as a seasoned host. There is no experience upon which the wolf may learn to help him navigate through what remains of the morning, but even so he meets the ungulate's gaze without judgment. The catbird's generosity revealed accepts both parties as members of his pack, and the wolf in turn vows to hold on to that same spirit.
I know you cannot understand me, but this place is a home for the lost. And if you're one among that number, then, well, welcome to our establishment, Wolf. A home really is all that you were after, wasn't it?
Wolf lets out a contented yawn and a single quiet bark. That night, the Minotaur dreams of a vast banquet, eating to one's limit and then lazily resting one's bones. The persisting question cannot be forgotten. Still, he can try to distract himself, a skill of which the immortal hybrid has become a master. There's always some leftover task in his infinite hotel, more to do than there's ever been time or hands for. Some tasks more pressing than others, and some sweeter, better kept when one can enjoy the moment. The Minotaur's hooves stir, his legs ache in anticipation of stretching, his eyes hunger for beauty and dear memories. He knows what he wants to do. The Minotaur thinks over and rehearses his words. Would you join me today in an exceptional task? That says nothing. It's impolite to ask an unknown thing of someone, and so he tries again. There are many sights you have yet to see in the hotel. Would you like to join me today? But he can do better. I want to show you many beautiful and wondrous things. Would you join me? During breakfast, however, his finely laid plan falls to ruin as soon as the Minotaur takes a sip of his coffee. The air today is chilly, just enough to keep his fur standing on end, and the coffee's vapour spreads warmth across his face even as a shiver climbs up his spine. Asterion leans back in his chair and speaks before his shame can take reign.
Today I want to show you a few incredible things.
He takes another sip, unaware of what he's just said. His ears flick back and forth like a hummingbird's wings.
I'm already looking at something incredible.
But the Minotaur does not hear you. The all-powerful coffee has enraptured his mind. Asterion finishes his coffee before speaking.
Do you recall how the hotel's translation malfunctioned with computers? I might have figured out a solution to it. It'll require us to have a little adventure, however.
Where are we heading? Right to the valley, I hope.
No, not the valley. We are going underground.
Excuse me?
You'll find out soon enough.
Come on, not even a hint? But Asterion shakes his head, lips sealed in a smile. Are we dressed enough for the occasion, at least? He sits back and watches you as you finish your breakfast. As soon as you lay your cutlery down, he's already moving toward the door. Hey, what's the hurry? Let's have to assign tasks to everyone. The Minotaur digs a hoof on the floor and snorts. He waits in anxious impatience. So let's see if Wolf wants to go and do some exploring. And let's get on with our stuff. After laying out the day's orders, you and Asterion head downstairs, past the ground floor to the door of the storage room where you once found a bottle of wine.
Before we go, I should check one thing. Follow me.
He leads you inside and trots to the end of the hallway. His gaze is aimed at the glass case sitting there. Still suspended within is that jagged purple rock in the vague shape of an axe head, which a foul liquid, black and red badly mixed together, drips down and pools at the bottom. Asterion glares at it and frowns. Relief washes over him when he sees the padlock is intact and the purple rock is untouched.
It's yours still.
I saw it when I came down here to get the wine for you. What is it?
A foul relic, defiled and dangerous. Leo, under no circumstances should you ever touch it. The burns it will leave will never heal.
Shouldn't we keep it in a more secure place then? Someone could just break the glass and reach in.
The storage room is only accessible to you and I, so in theory that shouldn't be necessary.
I suppose that makes sense. Still, you didn't answer my question. What exactly is this thing? The Minotaur looks down to the floor and scratches his neck. His breathing hitches, followed by a ragged snort.
It's an old weapon, meant to be used by only very few people. It would injure you than most who try to wield it. On top of that, it was defiled thousands of years ago. Ever since, it has seeped this foul liquid. I've tried my best to keep everyone safe from it. I was afraid Clermont might try to do something with it, which is why I had to check. But we can forget about that now. There are much finer things I wish to show you today.
Before you can protest or ask another question, the Minotaur comes closer and pressures you to walk back towards the door. Two of you go down a few more flights of stairs before setting off to explore another floor. Ahead of you is a hallway, devoid of lights that stretches farther than you can see. What are we doing here? There's nothing ahead of us.
For now, walk with me. I'll show you many secrets.
Asterion pulls a battery-powered flashlight from his pocket. Together you press on for a minute, 2, 3. The faint sounds of the guests drifting from upstairs fade away, while Asterion's clopping hooves and breathing remain. Every 2 dozen or so steps you hear his tail swishing, brushing against your side. You proceed. Your hearing becomes sharper as all distractions from the outside world disappear. But the hotel around you, the rock from which its structure was carved, groans and creaks. The walls sometimes shift and budge, as if the very stone was compacting around you. Asterion turns his head towards you. It's difficult to see his face in the dark.
Are you afraid?
This corridor isn't exactly reassuring.
Have no fear. This place may be odd, but holds no danger. Plus, it won't be long now. We're almost there. But if it brings you peace, my king, then hold your warrior's hand. With my horns and stampeding hooves, I'll let no harm befall you.
You, a warrior? You're too sweet to hurt anyone. Asterion snorts. You become so familiar with his voice that in only a snort you can detect a smile plastered on his face.
Still, my offer stands. Hold on to me.
There's a hint of pride in his voice. You catch a shadow of his chest puffing up. His hand is almost as coarse as sandpaper. As it closes around yours, its softness and warmth take precedence. His grip is firm, but lazy enough that you don't feel restricted at all. His voice rings cheerful as if he was smiling.
There's no reason to fear, my king. This place holds no danger, but still your bravest and most loyal knight will ensure your safety at all costs.
Strong and mighty as you are, I have no doubt you can take anything this land can throw at you. But, my good knight, will you hear your king's dearest plea? Asterion stops on his tracks and turns to you.
What is it, my lord?
You tug his arm, pulling him and then leaning close to his ear. You promised to call me Leo.
Oh, I was just having fun.
Next time do it while keeping your promise.
Oh, yes, sir.
God damn it. That's when he notes a light up ahead, slashing through the darkness from a sharp bend to the right. Asterion steps quicker and you let go of him. Even if you are behind him, you can feel a smile painting his face. On the wall you find the source of that light, a rack from which hang half a dozen strands of cloth tied into knots. From them dangles what you can only describe as a drapery of fire, or perhaps a shimmering snake. Asterion takes 2 cloth strands from the wall. He hands one to you and keeps the other for himself.
Fear not, this flame has no heat, it can burn nothing.
What exactly is this thing? Thought entities of labyrinth weren't allowed in here.
Think of it more as a natural phenomena, like rain or wind, rather than a creature. That's what it is, I can't know for sure, but I like to think even a flame can become lost from its warmth and get pulled here. Back in olden times I used them a lot to find my way in the night.
Now, come with me. He leads you deeper down the hallway. The dust in the air hangs suspended, as if held in place by strings. The air is still, and yet it has a velvety sensation to it. The whole place smells like an old book printed on paper of fine pedigree, yellowed by time and made all the richer for it. The Minotaur strolls up to a wall upon which a piece of parchment is nailed. He looks back at you.
In the early 20th century, had a handful of archaeologists who enjoyed exploring the old hotel. They delved down here a dozen times per week to study the architecture. Master Jean-Marie didn't want to open and close the doorway for them every time, and so he instructed me to leave it open for good. Just to be safe, however, I put this contract on the wall.
What does it do?
It tears itself in two if someone comes through here without authorization.
The parchment has been torn in half.
As I suspected. I guess that the kobolds hid down here before Cotter and Luke found them. That, or I guess, took a stroll through here just before Clement threw his tantrum.
Could have been something from the valley. We aren't far from it.
No, it's entities that have bitten from passing the hotel's threshold. There's no way.
You lean close to the parchment nailed to the wall. So, you can do this with the contract?
Of course, it's very simple. I used to do it all the time. By the binding will of the hotel's keeper, hereby a contract is established. Its sole clause is as follows. This contract shall remain intact and stuck to its place forevermore unless revoked, which will only happen if and when an authorized person comes within 10 meters of it. As the keeper, let my will become binding. There, a self-enforcing contract, just as binding as any other.
You never told me you could do that. Asterion's tail swishes behind him, almost in rhythm with his giggle.
You didn't ask. And besides, that's one of the reasons why I brought you here. I wanted to show you many secrets.
That's not an excuse. You could at least told me you can do this kind of thing.
I'm bound to obey your will, my lord. There's no rule commanding me to tell you all I know, or forbidding me from keeping secrets.
You don't have that yet. What's stopping you from creating it right this instant?
You wouldn't. You're not that kind of person.
He giggles.
Furthermore, if you commanded me to tell you everything I know, we'd spend the rest of your lifetime stuck here.
Okay, I suppose I don't have it in me to abuse my powers.
You're a good one.
You better tell me about the neat things you can do with contracts. That's something I'm sure I could find a use for, too.
Oh, I will show you, Leo. There are so many things for you to see. Now, ready to explore the old hotel?
Asterion raises the arm holding his length of fabric and looks around, ears twitch until his eyes lock onto a hallway like any other.
Follow me.
4 times he takes a turn to the right. One would expect you'd return to where you started, but instead the two of you are faced with a flight of stairs leading deeper into the underground.
Here's one little secret. The hotel shifts and folds itself in response to the people within it. If you're ever lost and want to find your way, simply take 4 turns to the right. But if you do that in specific places such as this, if you know what you're looking for, it will lead you to certain special locations.
How did this happen? Who made it like this?
I did. I designed all of it.
That doesn't answer how you did it. Asterion sticks out his tongue.
When the Masters accepted my oath, they gave me the power to write contracts of my own. I don't have all the permissions you do, but I know how to use well what I do have.
Enough to fold a building in on itself.
That and much more. Now let's go. There's much I'd like to show you.
Asterion takes you deeper. To a floor like something out of a documentary on Edwardian decadence. The marble floors are covered in luscious burgundy rugs, and the tall square columns support a moulded and bronze-plated ceiling. The entire space is lit by chandeliers dripping with crystal pendants, medallions and adornments. They refract the light into shimmering shards which dance across the stark-white walls and heavy damask curtains. To a floor that looks like every fantasy writer's idea of a medieval tavern. Large oaken casks sit behind the long counter, and a massive fireplace lights the stone, brick and wood interior with flickering firelight. Off the side, a narrow staircase leads up to the shadowy gallery which overlooks the squat tables and simple hand-carved chairs below. The deeper you go, the older the architecture becomes. Then Asterion stops. He looks around, checking each wall and hallway. Looks almost as if we're travelling back in time.
That is one way to put it. I've been running this hotel for many centuries. Every once in a while I've had no choice but to renovate it from the ground up. Instead of bringing it all down, I chose instead to push the older versions lower, stacking them on top of each other. So, in a sense, we are travelling back in time.
You say all of that as a little magic trick you pulled by snapping your fingers. But the Minotaur doesn't hear what you say. He notices the notch on the wall's corner.
We aren't even halfway through. Let's take a shortcut.
He leads you down a short hallway to a claustrophobic stairwell. You follow him down 1 floor, 2, 3, then through an archway into the far ancient past. Halfway between a temple and a home, reputed labyrinth regardless, carved out of the rock itself. The hallways branch off at odd angles, with doorways, staircases and steps strewn to the left and right. The space makes no sense. 2 doorways a foot apart will lead to different bedrooms, which seem to exist in the same space. The same room will be different depending on which door you enter it from. When you turn around, the path from whence you came it looks nothing like it used to. You hear Asterion's footsteps. They often come from distant hallways. This is pure chaos. And yet Asterion giggles and flicks his ears when he catches the puzzlement on your face. He stops once more to situate himself. While you wait, you take in your surroundings. The whole place is cramped, yes, but its closest like a private bedroom bathed in candlelight. Quiet indeed, like winter's first snowy night when all sound is muffled and made smooth than cream. The air. This floor is ancient, but there's no dust or mould. Instead it all smells like a bookstore, as if the place was made out of aged paper. And Asterion's hooves, they sound louder here, or is it that back on the surface he always walked with softer steps? Here his back is wider, his gait is fearless as a king's. His eyes read the space of each and every centimetre as inscribed in his memory. Plenty of room to hide in. Alcoves and crevices where none can see you unless they are a foot away, and end in hallways to confuse anyone with ill intentions. The hotel shudders. Never did its groan come so loud and grave before. When you look around, you find all the entrances to the room blocked off by rock.
What do you think, my lord?
He calls you Lord, but it's his voice that comes out with the confidence of royalty. I don't know if this place is impressive, eerie, or soothing. Perhaps all of them at the same time.
It was my first attempt at architecture. Back then my only references were labyrinthine themselves. Alas, some places I find quite cosy, many others feel are anxiety-inducing and entrapping.
This place is unorthodox, at least compared to other hotels I've been to. There's a cosy feel to it. And the whole non-Euclidean space thing? Can't say I wrap my head around it, but it is impressive.
Oh, that. I had a reason for it. Joseph the Merciful, he may have spared me from the valley, but he did not quite enjoy dealing with me. This way he didn't have to stumble upon me often. But that's in the past, much like this whole place. We're one of the oldest layers of the hotel after all. It's been centuries since I last visited. I'm sorry if this alienates you somehow, but it feels nostalgic to me.
Nostalgic? Were things good back then?
Not nearly as good as they are with you. Still, some memories I do cherish. You're in the hymns from Joseph's church, though I'm still not allowed in it, or making bread in that hall down there. That was about 2,000 years ago. Most of our guests were early Christians. They often asked me if I was an agent of Moloch.
I knew not what Moloch even was until they told me.
It was almost amusing to be thought so fearsome. But more so I was proud that even they eventually saw nothing to fear, could find rest in the halls I tended. But no mistake. As much as I may hold these memories dear, I much prefer being with you.
Oh, are you implying I'm the best master yet?
I'm sorry, I don't recall saying that. You have quite the competition. Have I told you about... let's see... Socrates of Byzantium? He used the hotel's powers to stop a crusade, then taught a whole kingdom how to read. Or how about Charles of India? Did I mention him? He single-handedly kept the conflict at Hyderabad from escalating into all-out war between the French and British. How could I forget Intellectum the Wise, who reserved 108 displaced peoples until they could return to ancestral homelands?
Now you're just making things up. There's no way he had someone called Intellectum the Wise.
How dare you question the legacy of Intellectum the Marvellous? At this rate you won't even stand up to Plato and Karl.
You aren't even saying the same names anymore. This is all made up.
My king and lord, you wound me with such words. I'll never lie to you, not in 100 years. But if you doubt me so, I suppose I have no choice. Hereby I, Asterion, do solemnly swear to tell Master Leo the full truth of this matter. Under one condition.
And what is the condition? We'll find out next time in Minotaur Hotel. I have to make my own cliffhangers sometimes, why not? I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm planning to do something else short in the week, and Glory Hounds will actually be next weekend. I just had to move things around a bit this weekend. And I'm hoping to do the whole of Glory Hounds in one go. I may split it into 2 videos. Potentially it'll be a busy weekend for me, so I might have to cut down some recording time and do it that way. But don't worry, we'll have Glory Hounds finishing off April on the channel. And in May, I know we have more Password on Tyson's Route. We're going to finish things off there. And we'll see what else happens with it. I have not got the schedule made up yet. But before we leave, as always, thanks to all my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are very much appreciated. Rustsai, I think I pronounced that somewhat correctly. It's kind of to give me some money on Ko-fi. Very much appreciated. And as always, my top patrons are Vulpers Need Coffee, Nova Starburn, Big Booty Judy, Omar, Smuto, Andy Peng, Burnt Toast, Kartek, Cobras Vissa, Legacy Bucciarati, Lark Huskerton, Bastion, Brian Hall, Tiger Cub, Ida Corval, Anubis Silverwind, Dissonance, Grizz, Spiderling, Kopi, Cindy Dragowolf, Marcus, Evan King, Exac, Aaron Fox, and Mohammed Al Zamel. So special thanks to all of you. Thanks to all my patrons who help keep the channel running. So yes, I will fit in something in the week, short video, and then Glory Hounds on the weekend. And then it's May already. How are we getting into May? I don't know. I'll figure that one out sometime. But for now, thanks for watching.